now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, the last day of July, 2026. Your reader for this hour is Chet Walzik. I'm glad you were able to join us, and we'll take a look at the USA Today Weekend Edition and what they're calling a USA Today exclusive. Ooh. RFK Jr. has real food, quote-unquote, on his menu. Dateline, Washington. Get ready for some sauerkraut-infused meals. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. will put his cooking skills to the test with celebrity chefs to motivate Americans to eat healthy. Kennedy has launched The Real Food Show, a new cooking series to help translate the new dietary guidelines for Americans into easy, affordable meals they can prepare at home, he said in an interview with USA Today. An evangelist of fermented food who once carried a personal stash of sauerkraut to restaurants, the HHS secretary said the recipes will feature kimchi, sauerkraut, and yogurt. As he prepares to try to change Americans' eating habits, Kennedy also talked about cooking with the family as an antidote to loneliness. His own eating habits, saying, "I'll eat anything, I don't have a gag reflex," his status as a weight loss guru among members of President Trump's cabinet, and a culinary habit his wife banned while going out to dinner. The new dietary guidelines, unveiled in January, prioritize protein at every meal, full-fat dairy, vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. The slogan, "Eat Real Food," accompanying the new guidelines, is an oft-repeated mantra among his circle of influencers, including boxing legend Mike Tyson. When we published the dietary guidelines, there was immediately sort of a good reaction, but also a little trepidation from the public and from critics, saying that this food is a lot more expensive than the ultra-processed foods that we've been eating. Kennedy said ahead of the show. And, well, that's not true. The program, available at hhs.gov/realfoodshow, that's hhs.gov/realfoodshow, will showcase how to prepare healthy meals for less than $5 a serving whenever possible. The first couple of episodes will feature chefs Andrew Gruel and Robert Irvine. For the first episode with Gruel, Kennedy will cook up a recipe for crispy salmon cakes with apple, white bean, and green salad. Kennedy's Make America Healthy Again movement has found common ground among a bipartisan group of voters, primarily those known as MAHA Moms, with its promise to combat chronic childhood diseases by reducing environmental toxins, ultra-processed foods, over-medicalizations, and obesity. Kennedy said the show can teach people it can be cheaper and healthier to cook at home. Fast food is not less expensive, he said. That meal costs $12 to $14. People can eat a lot cheaper at home and a lot better food. But many Americans have forgotten how to cook. It's becoming a lost art. Part of the job of Kennedy's Health and Human Services Department will be reintroducing Americans to cooking, he said. More than half of all men and almost 3/4 of women regularly cook at home, according to a 2023 study. Kennedy said cooking is not just a way to get good nutrition, but also a sacred ritual that has been abandoned. We have a malaise, an epidemic of isolation in this country, he said. Addiction, he said, is a disease of isolation and disconnection. And one of the ways that we can start connecting people again is through that sacred ritual of cooking, of coming together with your family and creating something that's beautiful, that's useful, and sitting down with them and enjoying that. The HHS secretary was quick to give credit to his wife, actress Cheryl Hines, as the better cook in their household. Kennedy said, that while he cooked 2 rudimentary meals a day, his wife is a much better cook. When they have company or when the kids come home, Heinz takes over the skillets. She loves cooking and she loves baking, he said. She's a very good cook. His repertoire consists of eggs, bacon, cheeseburgers, and hamburgers. I can cook a really good omelet, Kennedy said. And then my specialty would be steaks and meat and fish. Kennedy, known to be an aficionado of fermented foods, was in the habit of taking his own sauerkraut to restaurants, he said. I used to carry it with me, but I got too many complaints. Asked if the complaints came from fellow diners, Kennedy said, my wife, mainly. It's hard to carry without spilling it, and when you spill it, it causes other problems. He also does not make his own. I use store-bought sauerkraut, he said. Then the secretary described the correct way to eat it. The way that you're supposed to eat is to eat it bite for bite, he said. You take a bite of the meat, take a bite of the sauerkraut. That is kind of the prescribed perfect way of eating it. You know, I don't do that perfectly every time, but I try. It's not just Kennedy who is on the meats and ferments diet. Other followers, he said, include Vice President Vance, Commerce Secretary Lutnick, and Transportation Secretary Duffy. He said they had all lost weight on the diet. And how does it feel to be the Trump cabinet weight loss guru? A lot of pressure, he said, laughing. Asked about the most exotic food he has eaten, Kennedy said, I will literally eat anything because I don't have a gag reflex. I love experimenting with foods. When I travel, I'll eat street vendors cooking. Though Kennedy might be a carnivore diet enthusiast, he also has experimented several times with being on a vegan diet. But it never lasted long. I just had, a craving, an atavistic craving for protein, he said. His wife, he joked, would say he lasted all of 24 hours. I prepped the kitchen and did everything that I could, but I cannot last very long on it, he said. I feel hungry all the time. And another health-related story, again, coming from RFK Jr. Food tracking is better than ever. Amid parasite outbreak, Kennedy says cuts are not to blame. Dateline, Washington. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. told USA Today that the surveillance of foodborne illness is working better than it's ever worked, despite thousands becoming ill from outbreaks of explosive diarrhea. Kennedy said outbreaks occur every summer, and federal authorities have been quick to track them. In September 2018, which Kennedy referenced during an interview, a multi-state cyclopsoriasis outbreak was declared over after the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention was first notified of linked cases that June. On July 13th of that year, the retailer linked to the outbreak voluntarily stopped selling its salad, which was the suspected source of the illness. Today, cases of cyclopsoriasis, a stomach-churning parasitic infection known for causing explosive diarrhea, have now reached 45 states. Processed lettuce from Mexico has been linked to an outbreak in some of the cases. We do have a surveillance system in place, and it's working better than it's ever worked in history, Kennedy said. He denied that personnel cuts at the CDC hurt disease surveillance. Last year, federal health officials scaled back the Foodborne Diseases Active Surveillance Network, a program that has tracked food poisoning infections in the United States for decades. Unlike other foodborne illnesses like E. coli or Salmonella, cyclopsoriasis is a parasitic infection that can contaminate food and water. The CDC said the program, known as FoodNet, would no longer be required to monitor 8 of the 10 pathogens it had been tracking, including Cyclospora. The loss of that data could hinder health officials' ability to track cases, identify the source, and stop further transmission, Kalmia Neal, a professor of microbial food safety at the University of Delaware, said. We have a lot less information to work with, Neal said. I think we're seeing some of the effects of that now. Cyclopsoriasis is difficult to track because of its 2-week incubation period, Kennedy said. In contrast, illness from Giardia or Cryptosporidium make people sick right away. A lot of times, by the time people start getting sick, the guilty produce is gone from the markets, and it's very hard to track down what it was, Kennedy said. Experts agree outbreaks connected to foodborne illness can be difficult to track, and the parasitic nature and long incubation period of cyclopsoriasis add to the challenge. When you have a hard bug to figure out, like Cyclospora, it takes a lot longer to trace. It takes a lot more time and a lot more legwork, food safety attorney Bill Marler told USA Today. Marler said he expects a lengthy investigation, especially with significantly pared down staff at the CDC and FDA. Kennedy's comments on July 29th came as Michigan health officials reported 10,077 cases of cyclopsoriasis, an increase of 400 cases since their last updated day earlier. Michigan's health department has reported 160 hospitalizations through July 23rd, but no deaths. An investigation by the FDA has linked the outbreak to iceberg lettuce served at Taco Bell restaurants sourced from privately held Taylor Farms operations in central Mexico. But authorities were still looking for other potential sources given the size of the outbreak. The CDC has received reports of 6,700 laboratory-confirmed domestic cases of cyclopsoriasis. The agency said it was aware of more than 11,000 additional cases across 45 states that are not laboratory confirmed or require further investigation. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, where the time checks in at 12 minutes after the hour. And now, here's an update on America's favorite Eagles. A love triangle, you ask? Jackie fans are all a Twitter. Jackie, come get your man. A young female bald eagle has been spotted perching and preening near Shadow as his longtime mate, Jackie, remains in an intensive care unit 170 miles away from their home in Big Bear Valley, California. Not only is the new eagle hanging around Shadow, but the group that runs the live nest cam that made the Raptors famous say they believe she was involved in a fight with Jackie. Oh my, immediately before her hospitalization. Some of Jackie's longtime fans are calling the new female Jolene, after an adulterous woman made famous by Dolly Parton, and tabloids are covering the new development with the same breathlessness as a celebrity cheating scandal. Shadow was seen sitting on a tree perch Thursday with another female eagle, while his baby mama, Jackie, is recovering in the hospital, the California Post wrote on a Facebook post promoting a story about the love triangle. I don't know who has got to tell her, but I know no eagle named Joni, excuse me, this is cracking me up, named Jolene is about to take Jackie's spot. Jackie fan Tracy Mitchell of Indiana posted on TikTok. That is Jackie's nest, and Shadow is Jackie's man. Other bald eagle lovers take umbrage at the anthropomorphization of the wild birds. They say it's all part of nature, and negative characterizations can be disrespectful to creatures that are just following their instincts. Though experts say it's too early to tell if Jolene is trying to tempt Shadow to mate, the development has bald eagle lovers wondering, how long will he wait? The female bald eagle hanging out near Jackie and Shadow's nest is a sub-adult believed to be about 300, believed to be about 3.5 years old, according to Friends of Big Bear Valley, which has been running a nest cam live streaming the birds of prey since 2015. She is considered a sub-adult because bald eagles do not reach maturity until around 5 years of age, when they typically begin mating and laying eggs. In some cases, eagles begin to lay eggs when they're 4, the group says. The group believes that the same female had perched near Jackie in 2023 and that Jackie wasn't acting too territorial because it wasn't nesting season. Jackie was not concerned at all about the sub-adult perching with her, the Post says. In fact, she continued to preen and seemed very relaxed, though glancing over at the other eagle occasionally to keep an eye on it. No one thought much about the sub-adult again until Jackie's fight and hospitalization. Friends of Big Bear Valley says she probably was one of 2 sub-adults who got into a fight with Jackie and has now been hanging around the nest. Jackie has been hospitalized ever since at the Ojai Raptor Center, where she received a life-saving blood transfusion and has been undergoing testing and treatment for a mysterious illness her caregivers believe preceded the fight. She remains in critical condition. Though some have wondered if the new female is one of the offspring produced by Jackie and Shadow, Friends of Big Bear Valley believe it's unlikely because the age does not line up with any of the couple's young. After the sub-adult was seen with Shadow in a perch on July 22nd, the male bird had a lot to say about it, Friends of Big Bear Valley posted. The group did not elaborate until she was seen again with him over the course of several days. In another post, the group said Shadow showed some defensive behavior toward the sub-adult while his offspring, Sandy and Luna, were in their nest. But Sandy and Luna haven't been seen in the area for several days, which could indicate they have left on their life's journey, a milestone in every eagle's life that typically comes about 4 weeks after they fledge, the group said. If Sandy and Luna have indeed moved on, Shadow probably will become less territorial, the group says. Shadow is a wild and free eagle, they said. It is up to Shadow what direction he goes. Experts agree Shadow is not likely to be ready to move on from his life with Jackie. The pair have been together for nearly a decade and have shared 8 eaglets. I highly doubt Shadow is going to find another mate right now because it's outside of breeding season, said Jennifer Cedarleaf, avian director at the Alaska Raptor Center, which has treated up to 150 bald eagles in 1 year. But if something happens to Jackie and she doesn't show up next year, he will find another mate. From years of observations, Friends of Big Bear Valley say Jackie's reproductive hormones usually kick in come December. Shadow generally has a case of the December grumpies until his hormones kick in at the end of the month or early January, they say. Though most eagles mate for life, Jackie and Shadow already have lived through one love triangle. Oh boy. Jackie's first mate was known as Mr. B, and the two had 2 baby eaglets in 2018. One of the eaglets died after a 24-hour rainstorm, but the other, named Stormy, survived and left Big Bear that summer. Soon after, a new male came to town, chased off Mr. B, and stole Jackie's heart. That interloper was, come on, take a guess. It was Shadow. Ever since, the couple have been through it all, from winter storms that dumped many inches of snow to ravens raiding their nest and eating their eggs. They have an incredible bond, the group says. But again, Shadow will do what Shadow wants to do, the group reminded fans who may be bracing for potential heartbreak. We have no say-so in the matter. Well, man, there is fun stuff going on in Eagle Land. So we'll keep an eye on this story, and if we see any updates, I'm certainly interested, and I hope you are too. Good stuff there. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, where the time is 20 minutes after the hour. And unfortunately, back to the more mundane. Biden says he kept classified documents. Joe Biden tells a ghostwriter in materials released by a conservative think tank that he kept classified information from his tenure as vice president. 3 hours of audio and 117 pages of transcripts were released by the Oversight Project, a branch of the Heritage Foundation, on July 27th after the former president dropped a lawsuit seeking to block the public release of his conversations with Mark Louis Zwanitzer, a ghostwriter for his memoir. They didn't even know I had this, Biden told Zwanitzer during an October 2016 interview about sensitive foreign policy matters handled by the Obama administration, under which Biden served 2 terms as the VP. In an audio clip from 2017, Biden told Zwanitzer that he had found 2009 documents in his house related to strategy in Afghanistan. I just found all the classified stuff downstairs, Biden said. I wrote then President Barack Obama a handwritten 40-page memorandum arguing against deploying additional troops to Iraq. Well, I mean to Afghanistan, on the grounds that it wouldn't matter, that the day we left would be like the day before we arrived. The release of the audio and transcripts came days after Biden's attorneys filed a notice of voluntary dismissal in U.S. District Court in Washington. The public release of the material, with the potentially classified information redacted, also came more than a month after a federal judge ruled that hours of audio recordings tied to Biden's memoir could be turned over to the Heritage Foundation, rejecting his bid to block the disclosure. U.S. District Judge Dabney Friedrich said in a June 20th ruling that Biden's privacy interests, while real, are outweighed by the public's interest in the materials and the government's obligation under the Freedom of Information Act to promote transparency. The recordings stem from interviews Biden gave in 2017 to Zwanitzer for his memoir about the death of his son, Beau Biden. The Department of Justice obtained the materials during Special Counsel Robert Hur's 2023 investigation into Biden's handling of classified documents. Hur ultimately declined to bring charges against Biden in February of 2024, but said the former president had shared classified materials in the context of those conversations. Hur said he thought a jury would find Biden to be a sympathetic figure because of his age, 74 at the time, and what Hur has described as having a poor memory. Longtime Biden spokesman T.J. Ducklo did not immediately respond to a USA Today request for comment, but told the Associated Press that the Oversight Project's release of the materials was politically motivated. President Biden's conversations for a book a decade ago that discussed his late son are private and were provided to the Justice Department on the express condition they stay that way, Ducklo said. Reversing course and making them public is just the latest example of this administration weaponizing the DOJ for political retribution. The audio also details Biden meeting with Obama and advising on whether he should run for president in 2016. He said, "It's my decision to run or not. It doesn't have to do with the field," Biden recalled. Biden noted that Obama questioned whether he could win the Democratic nomination over Hillary Clinton, with Obama telling him that it would really be an uphill battle. The fact is that he did not think it was doable at that time, that I could actually go out and get the nomination, Biden said. That was my read at the time. Biden ultimately did not run for the Democratic nomination for president in 2016, deciding to hold off until 2020. And now, let's take a slide over to the opinions section for Friday, July 31st, 2026. And we have a piece written by Blake Fontenay. Mr. Fontenay is USA Today's commentary editor, and he comes to us under the title of Buc-ee's Supersized Stores Aren't All That, and a Bag of Jerky. I don't know if any of you have ever been to one of these Buc-ee's so-called truck stops in the pretty much southeast and the south, but they are something to see. But anyway, let's take a look at Mr. Fontenay's piece. I have a shocking announcement that may cause some loyal Buc-ee's customers to choke on their beaver nuggets. They are just gas stations. I realize what I'm saying is heresy to Buc-ee's backers who will be lining up to chew me out. I am aware that the Texas-based convenience store chain has 56 locations around the country, with more in the planning stages. I am aware that in my home state of Florida, the Buc-ee's location in Daytona Beach has been attracting more visitors than the famed Daytona International Speedway. I am aware that there are lots of sites on social media where people can go to rave about Buc-ee's plentiful gas pumps, clean restrooms, tasty brisket sandwiches, and consumer goods, many bearing the likeness of the chain's Buc-ee Beaver mascot. I'm even aware that during the World Cup, many foreign visitors went a little bonkers for Buc-ee's. I will concede the brisket is pretty good. For a barbecue snob who's lived much of his life in Memphis and Nashville, that's quite an admission. And some of the highway billboards are really clever. As for the rest of it, the hype, well, it far exceeds the reality. Having dozens and dozens of gas pumps at each location has been touted as one of Buc-ee's strengths. Yet, in all my visits to gas stations, I've never once needed more than a single pump to take care of my business. Buc-ee's has become so popular that there are long lines to get gas at some locations, which seems to defeat the purpose of having lots of pumps. More pumps should mean less waiting. When I say I want to make a pit stop while traveling, I mean it in the purest NASCAR sense of the world. I want to get it over with and get back on the road as soon as possible. The sheer size and layout of Buc-ee's stores work against that goal. One report found the average dwell time at a Buc-ee's store was more than 20 minutes, roughly twice the average of other popular convenience store chains. I can't imagine why people need that much time to figure out which type of fudge or jerky to buy. And speaking of the jerky, this is another example of Buc-ee's overkill. In my experience, except in situations where strenuous outdoor activity is involved, jerky is usually consumed more out of boredom than actual hunger. Ergo, Buc-ee's flavor offerings like Bohemian garlic and Korean barbecue seem like the answers to a question no one was really asking. So what about the clean restrooms? They're great. Really, they are. Although I had visited one that was less than immaculate. Some of the responses were pretty defensive, including a couple suggesting it might have been an act of sabotage. My question is, shouldn't we be expecting clean restrooms in all the public places we frequent? Why treat with mystique what should be considered basic customer service? Speaking of which, the Better Business Bureau gave some Buc-ee's stores an F rating several months ago for failing to adequately respond to customer complaints. I know what I'm saying is hard for some people to hear. My now ex-wife is an ardent Buc-ee's fan, So much so that if she was sleeping in the car as we drove past a billboard advertising an upcoming location, I would turn down the radio and be extra quiet so I would not wake her until after we had passed the exit. And, in case you're asking, no, that was not what doomed our marriage. Well, I'm fairly certain that was hardly the worst of my marital shortcomings. On a certain level, I know resistance to Buc-ee's is futile. Buc-ee's is planning a location in Fort Pierce, Florida, not far from where I used to live. While the project has generated a lot of excitement, it's also raised environmental issues and attracted urban sprawl around the development site. So, I recently moved 3.5 hours away to a new home near Ocala, which was once expected to get the chain's largest ever store. It apparently won't be, but the one that's planned isn't going to be a miniature version either. Buc-ee's is becoming inescapable. Many of my friends and neighbors are no doubt in the sway of beaver fever. So, I'm not going to try to steal anyone's joy. With gas prices being what they are, filling the tank can feel about as pleasant as a trip to the dentist. If going to Buc-ee's somehow makes that experience less painful, pay your homage to the buck-toothed rodent. Just know that as you travel America's highways, there are more interesting and more authentic places where you could be spending your time and money. If gas stations have become a primary form of entertainment, I'm not sure what that says about our cultural future in America. And I have to say, from my perspective, I agree with Mr. Blake Fontenay. They are, in my experience, just glorified gas stations or truck stops. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 32 minutes after the hour, and we jump over to the USA Today Money section, which on Fridays is typically the travel and tourism section. And our first story is written by Kathleen Wong, a USA Today travel contributor. Her piece, Dive into Wonder. These shark diving destinations change how you see the animals. Seeing a shark underwater when scuba diving is an exhilarating moment. While some may find that prospect terrifying, others will find it eye-opening. For a long time, sharks have had a bad reputation as dangerous predators, but the risk of being bitten by a shark is extremely low, according to the Florida Museum of Natural History's Shark Attack File. The odds of a human being killed by a shark, are 4,332,817 to 1, with the risk of drowning being much higher. In reality, it's sharks and rays who are at risk of death at the hands of humans. Each year, 80 million of these marine creatures are killed, specifically by commercial fishermen. Almost 1/3 of shark and ray species are facing an increased risk of extinction, according to the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. The year that PADI launched a shark and ray conservation specialty course, one of the world's largest citizen science initiatives to encourage divers to understand why these animals are worth protecting. When divers record their shark sightings, it contributes to global research and a deeper understanding of why marine ecosystems need these animals. Sharks and rays need more awareness and more action at scale, said Kristen Villette-Worth, Chief Brand and Membership Officer for PADI Worldwide, in an April news release. By combining classic PADI education with real-world participation, we are giving the global community clear, meaningful ways to protect the species they care about most. This is what it looks like when adventure, purpose, and impact come together. Diving with sharks in their natural habitat is an unforgettable experience and offers a chance to fall in love with these powerful yet graceful creatures. Here are the best places in the world to dive with sharks, according to PEDI. The Great Barrier Reef of Australia. There's no other dive site more famous than the Great Barrier Reef, and for good reason. This marine ecosystem is home to an array of sharks and rays, including white-tip reef sharks, black-tip reef sharks, tawny nurse sharks, leopard sharks, and eagle rays. And then we have Krabi, Thailand, a quieter alternative to the equally beautiful Thailand destination of Phuket. Krabi is a diver's paradise. At dive sites located below gorgeous limestone islands, you will encounter black-tip reef sharks, bamboo sharks, leopard sharks, and some ray species. And then we move on to Ishigaki, Japan. Located in Okinawa, Japan's version of Hawaii, Ishigaki is renowned for having one of the biggest population of manta rays. From July through October, these majestic giants take over the waters. At manta cleaning stations, divers can witness a symbiotic relationship in action as mantas gather and hover over reefs as smaller fish remove dead skin and parasites from them. That sounds like fun. And then we have Fiji. Fiji is more than just a gorgeous beach destination. Its waters are home to 8 shark species, including tiger and bull sharks. The island nation has taken strides to protect its marine creatures. In 2004, Fiji established the Shark Reef Marine Reserve, the country's first national marine park, and a shark sanctuary to fish in exchange for sustainable tourism dollars. And something closer to home, Bimini in the Bahamas. For divers eager to spot a hammerhead shark, look no further than Bimini in the Bahamas. These unique-looking sharks flock to the shallow sand flats of the islands from November through April. These aren't the only sharks you could see here. Lemon sharks, nurse sharks, and Caribbean reef sharks also swim in these warm tropical waters. And lastly, we have Aliwal Shoal in South Africa. An ancient sand dune off the coast of South Africa, Aliwal Shoal is a vibrant marine wonderland and a designated marine protected area. And let's move on to something more, maybe attainable. Again, a piece written by Miss Kathleen Wong entitled Skip Europe. These 5 U.S. getaways deliver a great amount of charm. A dreamy summertime Euro trip is more in reach than you think, and you don't even need your passport. Europe is trending among travelers this summer with an increased interest in picturesque coastal destinations such as Split, Croatia, and Naples, Italy, according to data from Kayak, whatever that is. But those who can't swing an international trip don't have to give up their dreams of sipping a glass of wine in a charming seaside town. All they have to do is look in their own backyard. The United States, that's right, the good old USA, is home to an array of underrated gems offering a similarly relaxed ambiance and romantic aesthetic people seek out in their European getaways. The best part is you don't need to hop on a long-haul flight across the pond. Here are 5 domestic destinations that'll make you feel as if you're in Europe without the hassle of international travel, according to boat renting platform BoatSetter. Newport, Rhode Island. Located on Aquidneck Island in Narragansett Bay, Newport is known for its opulent Gilded Age mansions reminiscent of European palaces, along with its equally stunning ocean views and beaches. Here, you can indulge in delicious seafood reminiscent of the Mediterranean and engage in the robust yachting culture of this New England coastal city, said Val Strife, marketing manager at Boat Center. And I have been to Rhode Island, and I agree, pretty cool place. Now we have Solvang, California. Near the California surf town of Santa Barbara is the charming village of Solvang, where travelers are transported to Denmark. Established in 1911 by Danish Americans, Solvang has earned the title of the Danish capital of America for its authentic Danish-style architecture, including those iconic wooden windmills, and heritage, like bakeries serving traditional Danish pastries. Travelers can leisurely meander the village's 4 blocks, stopping at wineries and the country's only museum dedicated to Danish author Hans Christian Andersen, who wrote famous fairy tales like The Little Mermaid. And then we have Leavenworth, Washington. A Bavarian-inspired mountain trip can be found in Washington's town of Leavenworth. Nestled at the base of the Cascade Mountains, Leavenworth captures the old-world charm of a European alpine village with its wooded Bavarian architecture, German food like brats and schnitzel, and even its own Oktoberfest. While the village transforms into a winter wonderland during the holidays, the summertime allows for outdoor exploration such as river tubing, kayaking, and hiking. And then we have Mackinac Island, Michigan. Set right where Lake Huron and Lake Michigan meet, Mackinac Island offers travelers a relaxed vacation surrounded by natural beauty such as limestone cliffs and rocky beaches. When walking down the charming Main Street, you won't be disturbed by honking or traffic since the island has banned cars since 1898. The lack of cars on Mackinac means you'll do a lot of walking here, just like in Europe, Strife said. For those needing a break from wandering, horse-drawn carriages are available, adding a romantic energy to the summer island getaway spot. And lastly, we have Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston's southern charm evokes a European vibe with its cobblestone streets and beautifully detailed architecture with French and English colonial roots. Travelers can ride horse-drawn carriages and explore the history of South Carolina's oldest city. Boating here is a must, Strife said. Explore the outlying barrier islands, embark on a fishing charter, or see dolphins splashing around you at sunset on a Charleston boat charter. And that, again, Charleston is another one I can personally recommend. Just a beautiful, cool place. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, where the time is 44 minutes after the hour. You now have to pay a tourist tax when traveling to Edinburgh. Trips to Edinburgh, Scotland are now a bit more expensive, as the city became the first in the United Kingdom to implement a tourist tax on overnight stays on July 24th, according to the city's official website. Under the new policy, travelers to the Scottish capital will be charged an additional 5% of their overnight accommodation cost for a maximum of 5 consecutive nights. In May 2024, the Scottish government first passed the Visitor Levy Bill, granting each city the power to introduce their own tourist tax. Edinburgh lawmakers formally agreed to the tourist tax in January of 2025. We know that the city's popularity comes at a cost through the pressure it puts on our services and on the people who live and work here all year round, said Council Leader Jane Meager. This small new contribution from overnight visitors will help improve the services and public spaces we all depend on while better managing the effects of tourism and major events. It's expected to raise up to 50 million pounds annually, or over 67 million US dollars, for the city to invest in protecting, supporting, and enhancing Edinburgh's worldwide appeal as a place to live and visit. The tax's revenue is expected to fund various citywide projects such as keeping streets clean by upgrading and replacing public trash bins, investing in city parks by hiring more park rangers and planting more trees, as well as restoring heritage and cultural locations like the Leith Theatre to create a year-round live music space. Scotland is just the latest European destination to charge a tourist tax. Over the past several years, cities such as Amsterdam and Venice have introduced similar fees to offset the negative impacts of over-tourism and improve the quality of life for its residents. Following behind Edinburgh's lead, Glasgow is slated to implement its own tourist tax of 5% on accommodations starting in January of 27. Here's what travelers should know about Scotland's first tourist tax. The tax will be paid by visitors with overnight stays in Edinburgh, not day trippers. It will be charged to all overnight accommodation types, whether at a hotel, Airbnb, hostel, or camping site. The 5% tax is charged to only the accommodation part of a stay, not extra services like parking fees or laundry. It is also not a per-person fee, but applies to the room rate according to the official website. For example, if your hotel costs £100 per night, the tax will be an additional £5 per night. Businesses are responsible for collecting the tourist tax on the final bill, so travelers don't need to calculate it themselves. So you're already spending a ton of dough when you're visiting these places, supporting the local economy, and now they want to charge you an additional tax to further support the local economy. Sounds like New York. Anyway, we move on. The new Six Flags coaster in New Jersey, guess what? It will set 6 world records. Dateline, Jackson, New Jersey. Six Flags Great Adventure lifted the curtain on its newest thrill ride called Bakunawa, a free-spinning, floorless coaster that will hold 6 world records when it opens in the 2027 season. The ride, named after a legendary sea serpent from the Philippine mythology world, will reach 382 feet high and speeds of up to 100 miles per hour, sending guests spinning through the air upright, inverted, and sideways. You are going to climb 90 degrees straight up to the top of the 382-foot tall tower, reaching the top and kind of sliding around the outside, which looks terrifying and amazing at the same time, before losing speed, said Mike Fennell, park president for Six Flags Great Adventure. And then you get to do it all again in reverse. The amusement park introduced the ride July 28th to media and influencers, some of whom held their smartphones aloft and live streamed the event. The coaster, still under construction, was dubbed Project Purple in a nod to raise awareness for pancreatic cancer. It has generated buzz among coaster enthusiasts worldwide who had wondered how the Jackson Park would create a new thrill. The answer? The ride will stake its claim as the world's fastest spinning coaster, tallest spinning coaster, fastest inversion, longest stall inversion, first floorless spinning coaster, and the first upside-down launch. We have never seen a ride like this, said Ryan Chin, a content creator known as El Toro Ryan, who was on hand documenting the day for his YouTube channel and its 170,000 subscribers. The upside down launch, the spinning trains. It's just very unique. It is totally different and cool. How about that? Well, USA Today is a little light on content in the travel and tourism section today. So let's take a look at some headlines or some issues from various states around us. New Hampshire, Rochester. The city's Conservation Commission voted to approve the expenditure of up to $300,000 from the Conservation Fund to support placing 130 acres of land into an easement, protecting the land and its water sources from future development. New Jersey, Princeton. 5 New Jersey communities were named along the wealthiest suburbs in the United States in a new national ranking, including one town that made the list for the first time. According to Moneyline's 2026 ranking of America's wealthiest suburbs, Westfield, Summit, Tenafly, and Ridgewood all returned to the top 50. Princeton also earned a spot, marking its debut on the annual list. Connecticut. Stanford. Officials reported Stratford's first West Nile virus detection of 2026 after mosquitoes collected in the town tested positive for the virus, a local TV station reported. And what do you think's going on in Ohio? Cincinnati. The city will devote as much as $2 million to help homeowners and businesses impacted by recent floods. And what about Pennsylvania? Well, in York, Pennsylvania, a federal judge ordered Republic Services of Pennsylvania, operator of Modern Landfill in York County, to pay a $9.2 million civil penalty for violating the Clean Water Act by repeatedly discharging pollutants into Kreitz Creek. And now, in Providence, Rhode Island, former House Speaker K. Joseph Shekarchi is free to jump directly from the General Assembly to the state Supreme Court without sitting out a one-year revolving door wait, a Superior Court judge ruled. And in Vermont, Montpelier, Vermont has added nearly 400 acres to 3 state forest properties through land conservation projects completed in early 26, expanding public access while protecting floodplains, wildlife habitat, and water resources. The acquisitions in Underhill, Granville, and Roxbury were completed by the Vermont Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation, according to a community announcement. And in Delaware, Dover, a 30-year-old man has been arrested and charged with raping a homeless woman who was sleeping next to the Kent County Courthouse in Dover on July 17th. And you ask, hey Chet, what's going on in Massachusetts? Well, in Marlborough, Boston Scientific's board has approved a new company-wide restructuring plan aimed at cutting costs and to better position the company for future growth, the medical device maker said. Looking at Maryland, Ocean City's beach will get replenished with new sand for the first time in 5 years, with $12.7 million in funding approved by the Maryland Board of Public Works for the job. That funding will be combined with $14.3 million in federal money for the $27 million project. Ouch. And guess what's going on in Baton Rouge, Louisiana? Louisiana's sweetest crop is under attack from an Australian native insect that arrived in the United States last year. The pasture mealybug, which can quickly damage or kill sugarcane, has been detected in 14 Louisiana parishes, and Louisiana State University Ag Center entomologist Blake Wilson said there is no, repeat, no playbook to eradicate the pest. And looking at Maine, Castine. Maine Maritime Academy's new federally funded training vessels, the state of Maine, arrived in Castine, marking a major milestone for the school's hands-on maritime education programs, News Center Maine reported. You are listening to reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, July 31st on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been me, Chet Walzig. I'm glad you were here. I'm also glad I was here. I hope you have a great weekend as we enter the month of August. Where is summer going by? Take care. We'll see you next time.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have History Magazine from our friends at Mind's Eye. At 2 o'clock is episode number 2 of We the Women by Nora O'Donnell. And at 3 o'clock is New York Magazine. Stay with us.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Nancy. We've got the Life section, which is Section B. Streaming. Unabomber does a double take to tell a killer story, from Bryant Truitt. Jacob Tremblay might not be the first guy you think of to play the Unabomber, a disheveled, middle-aged killer who baffled authorities for years before being caught. That's not the man Tremblay inhabits, however. Instead, he's a 16-year-old Ted Kaczynski who's just beginning to go down a very dark path. USA Today has the exclusive first look at the Netflix drama Unabomber, streaming September 25th, an unconventional, true-life drama told over two cross-cutting timelines. One focuses on Ted as a teenage prodigy attending Harvard in the 1950s, who becomes the unwitting victim of abusive experiments by his psychology professor, Henry Murray, played by Russell Crowe. The other flashes forward to the mid-1990s and centers on a team of FBI agents, including Shailene Woodley and Alexander Ludwig, hunting the elusive Unabomber that gets a significant lead in the case connected to Kaczynski's past. Though it would have been so interesting to portray Ted in his older years as well, Tremblay, age 19, says, "I did really enjoy playing a young Ted and an innocent take on this domestic terrorist. I'm playing a character who has no idea who the Unabomber is. He has no idea of the man he's going to turn into." The film's narrative also tied into Woodley's interests. "I'm always fascinated by the whys and the hows behind choices made throughout a life," says the actress, who plays FBI agent Joanne Miller. Learning about Ted's college years juxtaposed with the investigation to find him was something I haven't seen much more before in true crime. Director Janice Metz and/or Borg vs. McEnroe enjoyed the deep dive into the mind of a young Kaczynski. Though most people know about the Unabomber's criminal history, not many realize he was a math genius who got into Harvard at 16 and was recruited by Murray and his associate, Christina Morgan, played by Annabelle Wallis, as a guinea pig for experiments in mind control and manipulation. These were funded by the CIA and were some of the first traces of what later became the MK Ultra experiments, Metz says. Murray is seductive and charismatic, and as Ted starts to see him as a father figure, he discards his real parents and sees the shimmer of everything he's aspiring to be, until the reality of the experiments is brutally unveiled to him. In the movie, the quiet and awkward Ted at first is belittled in these experiments, where verbal abuse is used to break him, and he ultimately becomes aggressive himself. Tremblay points out an important scene where Ted goes home and has an angry confrontation with his parents. They find out that his grades have been suffering because of what they think is just a philosophy club that he had joined. And it wasn't, Tremblay says. Ted snaps at them. He screams at them. He lashes out, and that was a very pivotal point because it showed that there were consequences to his abuse. That timeline forms the man who, from 1978 to 1995, killed 3 people and injured more than 20 in increasingly sophisticated mail bombing incidents. Joanne Miller is a fictional agent who in the film leads the manhunt for the adult Ted and uses the words in the Unabomber's manifesto to track him down. Reading that manifesto and listening to real agents' stories about the Kaczynski case was the most helpful for me to understand the true weight these people carried during the investigation, Woodley says. For his part, because a lot of Kaczynski's younger years were a mystery, Tremblay studied the cadence of his voice and attitude during recordings of him being interviewed by investigators. That was just fascinating, listening to him speak and how confident and cocky and arrogant he was at the same time, the actor says. He was this total lunatic living in a cabin, but he's just so articulate. Tremblay was Metz's first and only choice for the role. Jacob is in a very interesting place, breaking out from being a child actor and taking on complex roles, the director says. He's in a very formative stage of life, as was Ted when he was at Harvard, so the two are linked in that sense. The world is wide open at that age, and you are so vulnerable to the people, the grown-ups, that influence you. Tremblay, who was 5 when he had his first film role, The Smurfs 2, and earned a Screen Actors Guild nomination for Room at age 9, did feel a connection to Kaczynski. I know what it's like to be in an environment where you're always going to be the youngest in a room, Tremblay says. Obviously, my experiences have been completely different from Ted's. I've had wonderful people around me who have taken great care of me since I was young. Another reason I was drawn to this film is because there's a bit of message of how important it is to protect the youth. We live in a world right now where so many young children are being harmed, physically and mentally. It really has consequences to their life and the person they can turn into, and who they might end up hurting as well. Here's another streaming. Kohlberger filing odds to angst in Idaho, from Kelia Richardson. When Brian Kohlberger pleaded guilty in July 2025 to the murder of 4 University of Idaho students, the victims' family members had different reactions. Kohlberger's guilty plea involving the fatal stabbing of Kaylee Goncalves, 21, Madison Maddie Mogen, age 21, Zaina Kernode, age 20, and Ethan Chapin, 20, meant no high-profile trial and no death penalty. On the day of the sentencing, the Chapin spent most of the day on the lake, while the Goncalves addressed Kohlberger with pointed impact statements. "Sit up straight when I talk to you," Olivia Goncalves, Kaylee's sister, told him from the courtroom. "I won't offer you tears. I won't offer you trembling. Disappointments like you thrive on pain, on fear, on the illusion of power. And I won't feed your beast. You didn't win. You just exposed yourself as the coward you are. You're a delusional, pathetic loser." As the victims' families began to look ahead, Kohlberger, who is serving 4 consecutive life sentences, resurfaced the case. He filed a petition on July 27th, seeking to challenge his guilty plea and conviction, with claims that he is innocent and was coerced into confessing the quadruple killings. His petition lands ahead of the Netflix documentary, The Idaho Murders, College Nightmare, which details the night of the quadruple murder through the perspective of prosecutors, family, and friends. The 3-part docuseries, streaming now on Netflix, marks the 3rd large-scale documentary project to address the killings, following Peacock's The Idaho Student Murders and Amazon Prime's One Night in Idaho, The College Murders, both released in July 2025. The Idaho Murders aim to contextualize the murders that ricocheted across nationwide headlines and the weeks-long effort to pinpoint a suspect. Even as Kohlberger was convicted and sentenced, victims, loved ones, and followers of the case longed to identify a motive. Here's what we know about the victims, the fateful night in November 2022, and Kohlberger's petition to take back his guilty plea. Who are the victims? Madison Maddie Mogen was a marketing major at the University of Idaho from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Hunter Johnson, a friend of the victims, previously told USA Today that Mogen was super caring and outgoing. Kaylee Goncalves, a general studies senior, had a sister-like friendship with Mogen. Goncalves from Rathdrum, Idaho, had planned to work for an out-of-state marketing firm after college. Zaina Kernode, a former marketing major, moved into the apartment as a junior and dated Ethan Chapin, a freshman recreation, sport, and tourism management student from Conway, Washington. Ethan was a big teddy bear, Peter Algorega, a friend said in the documentary. You could never be upset around him. The 4 victims lived in the off-campus Moscow, Idaho home with roommates Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen. The 3-story house was demolished in December 2023, receiving mixed reactions from the families. How did it happen? On the morning of November 13th, 2022, Mogen and Gunkovic were in bed together on the 3rd floor when the two were stabbed, according to Ed Jacobson, a former FBI special agent featured in the docuseries. Then Kernodle and boyfriend Chapin, in the 2nd floor bedroom, were fatally stabbed. Jacobson mentioned Kernodle was covered with defensive wounds in the docuseries. She had over 50 stab wounds on her, Jacobson said, referring to Kernodle. She put up a fight. Roommates Funk and Mortensen were on the 1st floor and didn't report the incident until later that day, unaware of the fatal crimes. After weeks of questioning suspects, including Gunkovic's ex-boyfriend, Jack DeCour, law enforcement arrested Kohberger on December 30th, 2022, at his family home in Pennsylvania. What evidence did they find? Law enforcement officials found DNA evidence on a Ka-Bar knife sheath next to 2 of the victims' bodies. Kohberger purchased the knife and the sheath on Amazon months before. Authorities also said they identified a white Hyundai Elantra that had entered the crime scene 4 times between 3:40 a.m. and 4:06 a.m., according to surveillance cameras, before reversing and speeding out of the Moscow neighborhood at 4:20 a.m. Officials traced his cell phone data, reporting that his phone went dark during the hours of the crime and then reconnected to cell towers after the fatal incident. Kohberger snapped a thumbs-up selfie after the incident, according to Heather Barnhart, a digital forensic expert. Who is Bryan Kohberger? Although he has a limited online presence, Kohberger wrote online as a teen and claimed to have no emotion and felt suicidal. He dealt with a heroin addiction, friends said, and went to rehab from 2013 to 2014. Becoming fixated on serial killers, he earned a master's degree at DeSales University in criminology and began a PhD program studying criminal justice and criminology at Washington State University. Police records detail that Kohberger had incidents with faculty and allegedly intimidated classmates, particularly female students. People who brutalize women the way Kohberger did, Lily Carabin said in the documentary, recalling sitting next to him in a criminology class. They dislike them, find them threatening, so they take all that anger out on them. After feuding with the professor, the university terminated Kohberger's teaching assistant role in December 2022. Where is Bryan Kohberger now? Authorities arrested Kohberger on December 30th, 2022. He struck a guilty plea deal weeks ahead of the murder trial in August 2025. Although Kohberger admitted to the stabbings of the 4 victims, he never had to verbalize a motive, frustrating family and friends of the victims. It's daycare, Steve Gunkovic, Haley's dad, said in a news conference outside the courthouse doors. Prison is daycare, people. Kohberger is serving 4 consecutive life sentences and a 10-year sentence for a burglary. The former criminology student filed a petition on July 27th seeking to challenge his guilty plea and conviction. The petition was for post-conviction relief, and he'll be representing himself in the Ada County District Court in Idaho. The petition permits defendants to challenge convictions after sentencing for reasons such as ineffective assistance of counsel, alleged constitutional errors, and legal errors. Koberger called investigators' findings a work of fiction, adding that its faulty premises were never challenged at trial. In a statement to the New York Times, "My actual innocence is my truth, and the plea, hinged on by false promises and blatant disinformation, must be withdrawn," Koberger said. Koberger declined to provide evidence of his innocence or provide context into his guilty plea woes, according to the Times. In the wake of his filing, Idaho Attorney General Raul Labrador shared condolences with the victims' families, and the Goncalves family criticized Koberger and his petition in a social media post, calling him a mosquito you just can't seem to swat. The real issue is that if as much energy was put into honoring the victims in this case as trying to set a guilty man free, there would be statues of the victims on every corner, the Goncalves family said in a July 27th Facebook post. "Regardless of how this turns out, our family is 100% ready. An actual trial this time. Let's go." Movies, news and views. Controversy over Young-Ho as Helen misses the point, from Patrick Ryan. Spoiler alert, we're discussing important details about the plot of The Odyssey, in theaters now. Stop reading if you haven't seen it yet and don't want to know what happens. If you're casting a face that could launch 1,000 ships, you can't go wrong with Lupita Nyong'o. The Oscar winner appears in dual roles in Christopher Nolan's 3-hour epic, The Odyssey, playing Helen of Troy, the world's most gorgeous woman, and her twin sister, Clytemnestra. There's no arguing that Nyong'o is impossibly stunning. Not only has she been a Lancôme and Chanel ambassador, but she was also name-checked for her beauty in the Beyoncé song, Brown Skin Girl. And yet, her casting as a literal demigoddess sparked outcry from a racist throng on social media. Here's what Homer has to say about the character, and why Nolan's casting of her is so genius. How does Homer describe Helen of Troy? Helen is the daughter of Spartan queen Leda, who was seduced by Zeus after he transformed into a swan. As a result, Helen hatched from an egg. Yes, we're serious. She went on to marry Menelaus, played in the movie by John Bernthal, king of Sparta, but was later contentiously abducted by Trojan prince Paris, which sparked the Trojan War. Agamemnon, played by Benny Safdie, Menelaus' brother and Clytemnestra's husband, helped seize the city of Troy and return Helen home. In the poem The Odyssey, the character is described as Helen of the lovely hair, while in the Iliad, Homer says she is both Helen, queen among women, and white-armed Helen. But in Homeric Greek, white-armed doesn't necessarily mean one has pale skin. Instead, it's meant to suggest that someone is upper class and high status, never having spent time outdoors performing manual labor. Despite these vague descriptions, Helen has almost exclusively been portrayed as Caucasian in art, TV, and film. In the 2000 miniseries Helen of Troy and 2004's Troy, the character is depicted with fair skin and golden blonde hair. Sienna Guillory and Diane Kruger, respectively. In the 1967 horror drama Dr. Faustus, meanwhile, Elizabeth Taylor dons her signature raven hair and dark cat eyeliner as Helen. Youngos was the only actor who could play Helen of Troy. Whether she's dazzling on a red carpet or lighting up the big screen in films such as Black Panther and 12 Years as a Slave, Youngo, age 43, always has carried herself with an intelligence and poise befitting Greek royalty. With her breathtaking work in Us and A Quiet Place, Day One, she has continually proven herself as one of the greatest actresses of her generation. And although she has very little screen time in The Odyssey, Nolan is interested in Helen of Troy as more than a mere figure. In one of his key changes to the story, Nolan gives Helen a giant scar across her face, which is never explained but lightly joked about by Menelaus. Through the characters of Odysseus, Matt Damon, Sinan, Elliot Page, and Athena, Zendaya, the filmmaker thoughtfully explores the casualties of violence and its far-reaching consequences. By giving Helen a conspicuous scar, Nolan shows that even the most coveted woman on the planet is not immune to mankind's brutality. Helen and Clytemnestra are half-sisters in Greek mythology, but Nolan makes them identical twins. It's a powerful tweak, meaning Helen's beauty is still exceptional, but also not entirely unique. Was it really worth massacring thousands for this one person? Beyond her obvious allure, Nyong'o is able to communicate the quiet pain and shattering realities of both Helen and Clytemnestra, which is precisely why Nolan was so perceptive in casting her. I don't think there's anyone else in the world who could play that part, Bernthal told USA Today. We think of Helen of Troy and her beauty, but it's about the inner life and how rich that is. She's able to bring the awkwardness and shame and betrayal and survivor's guilt and remorse and everything. We're dealing with the repercussions of war, which is what Chris was really trying to get at. To be able to bring in an actor like Lupita, who can convey so much with just a look, you really felt it in her, Bernthal adds. I'm so grateful it was her. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time's 35 minutes after the hour. Movie review. Holland's Spider-Man grows up in New Day. From Brian Truitt. Tom Holland's Spider-Man has battled Thanos, gotten blipped out of existence, lost his mentor, and sacrificed relationships to save the world. It's his newest adventure, though, that shows how much he's really grown up. Holland pulls off his most emotionally gripping work ever as Peter Parker, who battles isolation and evolution as well as a powerful new foe in Spider-Man, Brand New Day. 3 stars, rated PG-13, in theaters July 31st. If the previous Spider outing, No Way Home, paid homage to a deep history of the web slingers movies, this new film pays off story threads from the Holland era, weaves in a lot of comic book references, plus sets up a new status quo for New York City's friendly neighborhood do-gooder. Brand New Day picks up the story thread that ended No Way Home, where Peter makes the hard choice and asked Doctor Strange to cast a magic spell that makes everyone forget his existence, including girlfriend MJ, played by Zendaya, and Ned, Jacob Batalon. To prevent a multiverse catastrophe, some years have passed and Spidey's on a roll, beating down pesky baddies, including Scorpion, Michael Mando, and reducing the Big Apple's crime rate by a lot. Peter, however, is lonely and struggling. Via social media, he has watched his former pals attend MIT and go on living their lives, and he hopes that getting close to them again will bring back their memories. Yet, that's not the only thing weighing down our hero. He's recruited by Bill Metzger, played by Trammell Tillman, Director of Damage Control, to help the government agency tasked to clean up superhero dealings figure out the mystery villain who has been attacking them. And Peter's body also is doing some weird stuff, with his superpowers veering out of control as the arachnid DNA begins to take over. Brand New Day is a heavier Spider-Man movie than the previous rousing entries. But the Meteor story, with its dark themes balanced by a great sense of humor, befits a hero who has been saving the day since he was a teenager and is now dealing with more adult problems. And they're plentiful. Director Destin Daniel Cretton, a Marvel regular who has headed up Shanghai and The Legend of the Ten Rings, as well as the TV series Wonder Man, juggles a slew of subplots that do wind up coming together in a satisfying way. He also weaves in some intriguing body horror, plus elements of possession of films as Spider-Man's latest menace hops among people and takes them over to confound Peter while also serving their own nefarious agenda. In previous films, Holland brought a youthful, lively spirit to the Marvel Cinematic Universe as its resident Spidey. In Brand New Day, the character has experienced a lot, not all of it great, and the British actor is able to take a decade of playing Peter to a more meaningful place. Yeah, he's still throwing down with ninjas, shady law enforcement types, colorful hooligans, and yes, the Hulk. But the most relatable stuff comes with Peter facing his own mental health struggles and physical problems. "I'm not in high school anymore," Peter quips as he stretches before a fight. Holland and Zendaya's strong on-screen chemistry has obviously carried over into real life, and there's something always joyful about watching what those two and Babylon have built as a group of friends. The new dynamic that gives Brand New Day a spark this time is Spidey and the Punisher, played by John Bernthal, together. The Odyssey let audiences enjoy a taste of their bond, but this fully immerses them in a buddy comedy vibe, contrasting the cursing, R-rated vigilante Punisher with his young masked friend who tries to keep him from killing everybody. Stranger Things standout Sadie Sink also is in Brand New Day, playing a character whom it's best not to know until watching the movie. Hardcore Marvel comic fans will know and love her, yet she matches Holland's strong sense of gravitas with a role that's a great source of conflict and connection for Spidey. Like almost every main character here, this mystery young woman has secluded herself from others and needs to figure out she's not alone. Though Brand New Day might not be the most rambunctious or exciting of Holland's spider flicks, it aims to be a little deeper than the average MCU installment while trapping you in its gratifying web. Now it's time for Section C, which is sports. WNBA suspends co-owner of the Storm for Mitchell Northam. Seattle Storm co-owner Celeste Keaton has been fined and suspended by the WNBA for 5 home games for comments she made to 2 fans on July 28th. 2 people with knowledge of the decision confirmed to USA Today Sports. The people spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly about the incident or punishment. The suspension was for a violation of the league's conduct standards. It wasn't immediately clear how much Keaton will be fined. Seattle lost Tuesday to the Indiana Fever, and the 2 fans approached by Keaton sat courtside and held up signs in support of Fever guard Sophie Cunningham. One of the signs, according to photos, read, "Thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for girls." The 2 fans, who haven't been named, recounted the alleged interaction with Keaton in a video posted by podcast host Brandy Cruz. The 2 fans were wearing shirts from XXXY Athletics, which bills itself as a brand that's here to protect women's sports and spaces. This older lady comes up to us, and at first we think she's going to be nice, and she asks, "What are you guys doing?" And then it was like, "Jesus loves everyone," the 2 fans told Cruz of the interaction. And she goes, "I hope Jesus can forgive you for what sin you've done." And then she told us we're expletive insane. In a statement to USA Today Sports, Storm majority co-owner Ginny Gilder said, We're aware our co-owners made comments to two fans in attendance at last night's game. We apologize that this happened. Everyone who attends a Storm game deserves to feel welcome, and we remain committed to creating an inclusive environment where every fan is treated with respect. Cunningham has drawn attention following an ESPN story that quotes the Fever star saying, I think I'm here to extend love, but I also think with love is truth, being honest, and I want to protect young girls in a locker room or young girls in sport who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Asked about that stance last week, Cunningham said, I'm there to love, but I'm also there to love biological women. And I think there are rights that need to be protected. Like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that. But I have never once said I hated the trans community. Like I said, I think there's space for everyone. Upon learning of Keaton's suspension, Cunningham wrote on X, Everyone is welcome at my table. You can disagree and still be kind. She commended the two fans for standing up and said she'll be sending them gifts, then added Keaton's alleged actions were truly embarrassing. Before the Fever defeated the Storm, there was a small rally outside of Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, where a few dozen people showed their support for Cunningham and to promote statewide initiative 1126638, which would bar transgender students from participating in girls' sports at Washington Public Schools. Cunningham was not made available to reporters in the post-game news conference. When Fever coach Stephanie White was asked about the rally, a team spokesperson intervened and read a statement saying, Neither our organization nor Sophie had any knowledge of this demonstration and no contact with its organizers. Our only goal as a team, whether at home or away, is to win basketball games and make Fever fans for life. We are united in that mission. Before the game, veteran Storm Center Stephanie Dolson wore a shirt that said, Trans rights are human rights. Photographs of her wearing the shirt were posted to the Seattle team's official social media accounts and garnered more than 3.7 million views on X. Commentary. Notre Dame Sports sold on SoFi patch from Tom Knoll. SoFi. So what? That was the first reaction when Notre Dame Athletics announced on July 28th a multi-year agreement with SoFi Technologies, which becomes the first non-athletic apparel brand to have its patch on the jersey of every Irish athletics uniform. There it was on the enclosed promo picture, on the left side of the traditional blue home football jersey. Likely the basketball jerseys and hockey sweaters this winter. Baseball and lacrosse and softball come spring. Those days of seeing only an Adidas or Under Armour logo seem so yesterday. Yahoo Sports reported that the agreement is for 6 years at $18 million to $20 million per year, which would make it the most lucrative in college sports. Fitting. It's Notre Dame. A Notre Dame source confirmed to the Tribune that it will be a multi-year partnership. Notre Dame doesn't comment or release specific financial numbers. Let's say 8 figures a year for at least the next 6 and go from there. The university termed the agreement landmark, which is a funny way to say necessary, mandatory even. It's ironic that SoFi becomes the official financial services partner of Notre Dame Athletics because this is indeed all about one thing, money, as in more of it. Money has replaced recruiting as the lifeblood for every college athletic program. Those who have it can dream national championship dreams. Those who have it also need more ways to get more of it. 5-star recruits are nice, but another $5 million into the athletic fund is paramount. 10 years ago, the thought of what happened on this July day would have seemed laughable, ludicrous even. Then, not at Notre Dame. Today, even at Notre Dame. It's a necessary part of doing business for every college athletic department. Find some athletics real estate somewhere, slap a logo on it, cash that check, and keep the athletics machine rolling. It doesn't look right, but nothing does about college athletics, where everything about what was once sacred is for sale. Save the outrage for something else, like gas prices or inflation. Advertising patches on college uniforms? Just another business day. Ohio State did its deal with J.P. Morgan's Chase on July 27th. Notre Dame did its July 28th. Alabama, Michigan, Texas, you're on the clock. Get a deal done, fellas. Schools have massive multi-million-dollar athletic payrolls to meet. At Notre Dame, the football roster will run nearly $50 million to help the school to its first national title since 1988. As you read, said football program continues to transition from the outdated Guglielmo Athletics Complex next door into Shields Hall, which likely will carry a final price tag of nearly $200 million. Jersey patches today, what next tomorrow? Don't think Notre Dame or any other school of higher learning that competes at the highest level of Division I athletics will stop at jerseys and call it a day. If that little space on the right side of the blue or white or green or whatever color they decide to make the uniform is prime real estate for advertisers, i.e. money, what's next? Naming the field turf inside Notre Dame Stadium will be next. Bringing advertising signage inside the house that Rockne built will follow. Every quarter will be Notre Dame football brought to you by slapping a national brand logo on the Word of Life, Touchdown Jesus. Mural on Hesburgh Library might be considered. Just kidding, though. Somewhere, somebody is like, well, you know. No, just no. The gold helmet, also untouchable. This SoFi/Notre Dame partnership is added proof that college sports are professional sports. Stop insisting otherwise. There was Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bevacqua still playing the hits with his quotes about the student athlete and for forever, and explaining away about SoFi will do this and that for future student athletes. He didn't say the obvious. SoFi will help offset the current constant burden of the football program or the basketball program, yeah right, or any other Irish outfit from sweating out having to meet this season's or next season's or some season's payroll. College athletics programs need this kind of financial resource. We're not far off from being some school not being able to afford football or basketball or both. If the Irish football program's payroll flirts with $50 million this season, what will it be next season, 2 years from now, 3? Just get to student athletes as university employees, get to collective bargaining, and get on with it. College sports forever changed in 2021 when the decision was made to pay student athletes, paid as in $5 million per season for some and $6 million for others. We are not going back. Payrolls and logos and all they entail are here to stay. Get used to them. Hate them all you want, but understand that this partnership agreement is just the start. Everything athletic on that campus has a price, must make some more money, must meet that player payroll. We're not far from Notre Dame football sponsored by, insert advertiser here. That day's coming as the one where head football coach Marcus Freeman looks like he's wearing a NASCAR jumpsuit on the sideline, while with advertising logos placed here and there and everywhere. Everybody and everything is for sale. Every college athletics administrator has their hand out. This is the life today in the NBA. This is the life today in MLB. In the WNBA, in auto racing, why should it be different in college football, in college athletics? We learned on a sleepy Tuesday afternoon in late July that it's not. So, SoFi, so what? You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 55 minutes after the hour. Brown, Sanders, Watson open camp locked in quarterback battle, from Jack McCasey. With fewer than 8 weeks to go before the start of the regular season, the quarterback one spot on the Cleveland Browns depth chart still reads TBD. Browns head coach Todd Monken told reporters on July 29th that veteran Deshaun Watson and second-year Shader Sanders will continue their battle for the starting job at training camp. Neither players made enough of an impression on their new head coach in the spring to earn the quarterback one spot as summer practice begin. Nothing's really changed, Monken said. We anticipate alternating. First of all four quarterbacks are going to compete. They all won't get equal reps. Obviously, we will alternate, just like we did in the spring. Deshaun and Shader with the ones. The Browns are one of three teams with a starting quarterback battle underway during training camp. Along with the Minnesota Vikings, J.J. McCarthy versus Kyler Murray, and Atlanta Falcons, Tua Tagovailoa versus Michael Penix Jr. But where both Atlanta, Tagovailoa, and Minnesota, Murray, have apparent leaders in their quarterback duels, there's less certainty in Cleveland. What is apparent is that the Browns' quarterback battle is down to Watson and Sanders. Cleveland has two other young quarterbacks on its roster, 2025 third-rounder Dillon Gabriel and 2026 sixth-rounder Taylen Green. But Monken's comments suggest neither will get first-team reps in training camp this year. We have to divide the reps up according to the depth chart, Monken said. In a perfect world, I prefer the ones get 50% of reps, the two get 33%, and three get 17%. And somewhere the other guys have got to fill in. Can you always count on that? No. So the more those guys you start to see them with the ones you can kind of anticipate, they're our starters. Monken also said he isn't taking into account past performance when making his decision, meaning training camp performance will weigh heavily on the final call. He said he doesn't have a deadline for choosing a starter outside of the obvious, necessary one, week 1 of the regular season. The easiest way for me to say that, and it still won't stop you from asking, is the first game, Monken said. We're going to have a starter the first game, right? Ultimately, I'm not going to decide who the starter is. They decide by their play. Their play decides who the starter is. Watson is in the final year of the fully guaranteed 5-year, $230 million deal he signed in 2022. He hasn't played since Week 7 of the 2024 season after tearing his Achilles in a game, then re-tearing it in January 2025. Watson is averaging 177.1 yards, 1 touchdown, and 0.6 interceptions per game in 17 starts with the Browns over 3 years. Sanders is entering his second season in the NFL after the 2025 fifth-round pick made 7 starts. He threw for 1,400 yards with 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions in 8 games. He also took 23 sacks in those 8 appearances for 164 lost yards. Packers running back legend Green reveals early Parkinson's, from Nick Brinkerhoff. Ahman Green, the Green Bay Packers' all-time leading rusher, revealed he has been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Green revealed the diagnosis to Tyler Dunne during a July 29th appearance on the Go Long podcast. Last year, I got diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's, Green told Dunne. I had a little bit of the feet twitching when I'm in my sleep and stuff like that. I knew something was going on long before that. I just got a hold of some doctors that I was able to get in contact with. Get the diagnostics, get the testing. And finally, it tested last. I think it was January of 2025. Green added that he didn't want to share the diagnosis publicly until his family was aware of the news. I didn't share it for a long time because I wanted to let my kids know, my family, Green said. And I did. I have 4 daughters and a son. I let them all know first before I told friends, family, somebody like yourself. Green pointed to nutrition and cleanses as are part of his routine now, comparing it to an oil change for a boat or car. He added that it helps him stay on track in this process and stay in control. Helping my kids with the information, letting them know, but then say, I got the reins, I'm in control. I'm not going to let this control me. There's some medicines that I've been taking from the doctor's side of it, so I made sure on my protocol there. But then on my side, my body and my medicine as well is a huge part of my thing, making sure I stay on top of all the things that are going on with my body. When asked about the symptoms, the 49-year-old noted that his short-term memory is trash, and he has to remind himself of things by repeating or writing it down. Other symptoms include a twitch in his sleep and sleepwalking. Green expressed a desire for the connection between football, head trauma injuries, and Parkinson's to be discussed more, while remaining optimistic about his future. It needs to be upfront, Green said. It needs to be a topic that's always hit, and it's not the end-all. To me, I have a jump ahead of it, just like anybody discovering they have some type of cancer in their body. I'm ahead of it right now. Green played 12 seasons in the NFL after being drafted by the Seattle Seahawks in the 3rd round in 1998. He went on to play 8 seasons with the Packers, making the Pro Bowl 4 times. He remains the Packers' all-time leading rusher with 8,332 yards. The running back certainly isn't alone in this fight either. Green's former teammate, Brett Favre, revealed his Parkinson's diagnosis in 2024. UCLA coach reveals how easy it was to keep quarterback, from Jordan Mendoza. Even after a rough first season at UCLA and a new coach coming in for the 2nd year, quarterback Nico Iamaleava had no plans to leave the Bruins. There was wonder if Iamaleava, who had a highly publicized departure from Tennessee to UCLA in spring 2025, would want a fresh start after the Bruins went 3-9, their worst record since 2018. After the Bruins hired Bob Chesney in December, the number one task he undertook was trying to keep his quarterback. Chesney succeeded as Iamaleava didn't enter the transfer portal. Chesney was asked at the Big Ten Media Days on July 29th about how he was able to keep the polarizing signal caller as he enters his first season in Westwood. It turns out there wasn't much convincing he had to do. It started out with retaining Nico, obviously. When we got here, Chesney said, I think for Nico, and he can speak on his own behalf, but I'll let you know just to add a little color to it. He didn't want to go anywhere. This is where he wanted to be. This is where he wanted to play. The coach added factors like being from Southern California and his younger brother, Madden, who also being on the squad played a role in wanting to stay, which were things Iamaleava had consistently said were reasons he chose to transfer to UCLA after a reported name, image, and likeness fallout at Tennessee. With the desire to stay, Chesney said the next phase was making sure he was on the same page with the incoming coaching staff. Now it's about helping him take that next step in what could be his final season of college football. I just love the growth he's had as a leader, Chesney said. To watch him just grow and run with this and flourish at this moment as a leader, he was unanimously voted the leader of our football team when we voted our leadership council. He was at the top by a large margin, and that just speaks to the way he carries himself on a day-to-day basis. We're going to need him to be really, really good on Saturdays as well. Iamaleava threw for 1,928 yards and 13 touchdowns with 7 interceptions in 11 games last season, while leading the Bruins in rushing yards, 505, carries, 112, and rushing touchdowns, 4. UCLA opens their season at California in Week 1 on September 5th. The NFL. Chargers well-paid James hungry. From Tyler Dragon. 3 multi-year contracts with a single team is rare in today's NFL. Becoming the highest-paid player at a position twice is even more of an oddity. Los Angeles Chargers safety Derwin James is cognizant he's in rarefied air. I started playing this game at 4 years old in the yard for fun. I never thought, and I could have never imagined, I'd be paid a third time like this, James told USA Today Sports in an exclusive interview. But I'm still working, man. I'm still hungry, man, and I'm not satisfied. The Chargers signed James to a third contract in May, a 3-year, $75.6 million extension that made him the NFL's highest-paid safety for the second time in his career. The 9-year veteran has become one of the preeminent safeties in the NFL since the Chargers drafted him 17th overall in 2018 out of Florida State. He's a 5-time All-Pro selection, including a first-time All-Pro nod in 2018 and a 5-time Pro Bowler. Superman out there. James is part of a new evolution of safeties who play all over the field. This versatile group of safeties includes Baltimore's Kyle Hamilton, Seattle's Nick Emery, and James, who line up at various spots on the gridiron on every given snap. According to Pro Football Focus, James was tracked at box safety, free safety, slot corner, wide corner, and even the defensive line last year. Harbaugh labeled James as a six-tool player. He can cover and he can play any position in the secondary. I guess what jumps out the most is he can play nickel, he can play dimebacker, he could play corner, he could play in the deep half, he can play in the deep middle, and he can blitz, Harbaugh said of James. You have to compare him to Willie Mays at that point. He's a 5-tool, 6-tool secondary player. It's incredible what he can do. He does it all. It's like Superman when he puts on the armor, when he puts on that suit and wears that number 3. He's donning the cap. He's Superman out there. The Willie Mays and Superman comparisons are apropos considering the Chargers have labeled James the heart and soul of their defense. James has amassed 684 tackles, 40 tackles for loss, and 19 sacks in his career, making him 1 sack shy of being the third NFL player to reach 600 tackles, 40 tackles for loss, and 20 sacks within the first 100 games of a career since the data was tracked in 2008. He's produced the most quarterback pressures, 65, and sacks, 15.5, among defensive backs over the last 5 seasons, according to NFL research. I'm just trying to work my butt off every day, James said, to make people like him. Now, that makes him types of comments where people aren't scratching their head like, man, what did he say? Is he crazy? I want to be able to put the pressure on myself to be able to go out there and perform and consider myself one of the greats. James anchored the Chargers defense that finished top 5 in total defense last year and was number 1 in scoring defense 2024. What he's done the last couple years, he's been an all-pro slot corner, nickel, however you want to say it, Chargers defensive coordinator Chris O'Leary said. You want 11 Derwin James. If you're going to put a scale to what he's best at blitzing, owning the perimeter. He's, to me, the best in the world at doing that. I'm the best safety. James hopes to be a Charger for life and yearns to be considered one of the greats. He already believes he's the top player at his position. I don't take the field not feeling like I'm the best safety in the NFL, he said. James, who turns 30 in August, knows what eludes him thus far and is team success. He's been part of just one playoff win as a Charger. The Chargers have won 11 games in each of the last 2 seasons while earning playoff berths and have made 3 postseason appearances since 2022. But an epic 27-point meltdown, a 4-interception performance from Justin Herbert, and an offensive no-show have marred the Chargers' 3 most recent playoff exits in the wild-card round. Once we get past the first round, I feel like the sky's going to be the limit for us, James said. We're going to roll, man. I feel like every year this team is in a prime position, an 11 or 12-win team. Los Angeles is a championship-driven city spoiled by titles. The Dodgers have 9 World Series titles and are chasing a three-peat. The Lakers have 17 NBA championship banners, including one in 2020, while the Rams won Super Bowl 56 and are a prohibitive favorite to capture Super Bowl 61. Meanwhile, the Chargers are one of 12 teams to have never won a Super Bowl. That's why James enters his 9th season with the Chargers, focused on establishing a championship culture and assisting the franchise on a mission to get to the pinnacle of the sport. If I could win the Super Bowl, James said, I've been paid 3 times. I made 5 Pro Bowls, 5 All-Pros. I've done all the single accolade things, I feel. But the team goal, this team has never won a Super Bowl. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for July 31st. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Nancy.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 10 of More Than Enough by Anna Quinlan. At 3 o'clock, we have New York Magazine, and at 4 o'clock, we have a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more.
The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a serialized reading of the